Hi, my name's Chris Maloney, and welcome to UmpireHockey.com's 2017 NFHS Field Hockey Rules Interpretation Meeting. When you go to UmpireHockey.com/gear, you can purchase a copy of the Middle School Field Hockey Rules, my book, Field Hockey Understanding the Game, and a kit designed to carry all of the essential equipment, and it includes all of the essential equipment that an umpire needs to officiate field hockey. Further, when you go to umpirehockey.com/enroll, you can sign up for the rules and umpiring course that can be taken on a smartphone, computer, or tablet, or any combination, at a place and at a pace that's convenient for you. Now let's get started. A bit of housekeeping. First of all, the presentation is categorized into two parts: rule changes and editorial changes. Secondly, if at any time during the presentation you want to stop and read what's on the screen, it's easy to do. Just click the pause button and then restart it by clicking the play button. So let's get started with the rule changes. The first three slides are all due to the fact that the NFHS has changed how goalkeepers are allowed to substitute. Now, the NFHS matches the rules of hockey and the NCAA modifications. The goalkeepers, their substitution is now managed by the tableside umpire. And we have notes that talk you through basically what to consider when managing a goalkeeper substitution. First of all, when the umpire signals timeout, the waiting goalkeeper should get on the field right away. This is the timeout for the substitution, of course. They should not wait for the other goalkeeper to get themselves off the field. Second, the timeout for a goalkeeper substitution happens at what is referred to in the book as a natural stoppage. What is a natural stoppage? It could be a free hit. It could be that the ball goes out of bounds. Maybe the ball goes out of bounds, rolls down a hill, goes into the creek, and during the time that you're trying to recover the ball, or the site management is trying to recover the ball, that's a great time to have a substitution. Typically, if the red team has a free hit, that's when we want to do a red team goalkeeper substitution. But that's not a requirement. So you could allow for a white team substitution of the goalkeeper to happen when the red team has a free hit, but not at a time when either team would be disadvantaged by that timeout. So if the red team is charging downfield and they've got a bit of a breakaway going, but there's a foul just inside the circle, and so the red team is going to get a free hit that is going to take place on the way into the circle while the defense is out of sorts because they were chasing this breakaway, then you do not want to have a white team substitution signaled just because the red team has the ball on a free hit. And in fact, you don't even want to have a red team goalkeeper substitution take place at that moment, because that will interfere with their numbers up opportunity going into the circle off of that free hit. So use common sense. Now, when you're doing a goalkeeper substitution, it's perfectly fine for field players to substitute at the same time. They have to follow normal protocol, however. So by rule, the players that are coming off the field have to come all the way off the field before the other players are allowed into the game. Now, as individual umpires, we are allowed to allow a player to come on. So for example, if I'm standing near the center line and I've just called a timeout for a goalkeeper substitution, I might say to player number 12 that they can go ahead in because I see that they're going in for player number 7. But otherwise, by rule, the field players, even if they're substituting during the goalkeeper substitution, have to wait by the sideline until their player that they're going in for has exited the field. The only time goalkeeper substitutions cannot take place is, of course, on a penalty corner, unless the goalkeeper for whom they are going in has become injured. So if a field player is injured on a penalty corner. You cannot do a goalkeeper substitution. Only if the goalkeeper who is being replaced is injured can you do a goalkeeper substitution during a penalty corner. And if you're substituting a goalkeeper on a penalty corner under those circumstances for the red team, you're not allowed to do the goalkeeper substitution for the white team. All right, let's move on to these other rules. And this is just an addition here of unnecessary delay of game and dangerous play into Rule 8115. This is new, but it's been part of the rules. Of course, you know that players can't play rough or dangerously or cause delay, but now it's specifically mentioned as part of the fouls. This next one, we've highlighted the word shall because it used to say may or can, and neither of those actually is accurate. If there is a foul inside the 25 and outside the circle, the penalty is, and frankly always has been, a penalty corner. It has not been an upgrade to a penalty corner that's at the official's discretion. All the official is doing is deciding whether or not the foul was intentional or not. And now, intentional, we have to think about that. An intentional foul is a foul that the defender meant to do. In other words, their actions are being judged by the result. So you could say that the defender was tackling from behind using a lumberjack swing, you know, that big swing overhead where they crash down on the attacker's stick. That is clearly an intentional action, correct? But the player might say, but I was intending to get the ball legally. But we have to penalize that breakdown play because their actions were intentional. It's not like they were tripping and falling and then landed on the stick of the attacker. So again, if there's an intentional foul by the defense inside the 25 and outside their circle, then that is penalized by a penalty corner. It is not an upgrade. Here's one of those opportunities you might use to stop the playing of the presentation. I just want to highlight here that this is a pretty low bar to reach for a field player or a goalkeeper during a game. What it says is if the player disputes or appeals or protests or reacts in a disapproving manner towards any decision made by the umpire, that it's misconduct. I hope everyone listening to this realizes that the players are human. They're involved in a battle, and while they have to conduct themselves in a sportsmanlike fashion, we can expect some disapproval by a player who is disappointed, an expression of disapproval, who is disappointed by the outcome of a call. Now, it can't be rude and it can't be obnoxious, but you're going to get that natural reaction. And I read for you now a couple of points from the NFHS basketball rulebook and girls lacrosse rulebook. What it states about misconduct is that disrespectfully addressing or contacting an official or gesturing in such a manner as to indicate resentment, those are misconduct. And excessive dissent or abusive language, those are misconduct. I just feel that this language in the field hockey rule book needs to be elevated to indicate that we don't want to start carding players just because they have a brief disapproving reaction to a call that's been made. This slide concerning Rule 8.2 penalties, 2, 3, and 4, highlights that the NFHS has removed that a penalty stroke shall be awarded when a flagrant red card is issued to the player. Now, it is important to note that coaches still, if given a red card for flagrant misconduct, that still causes a penalty stroke to be taken by the opponents. The 25-yard free hit signal, so the ball is last touched by a defender and the ball went over the end line and it was not intentional. The attacking team restarts play on the 25. The umpire's signal. Basically, you swing your arm like a pendulum, indicating where the ball went out and where the play should be restarted. It's kind of like what I call a broken windmill. But you want to be careful that when you're pointing at the 25, don't look like you're signaling a free hit to the defense. So keep that arm and hand low. And I'm sure it will be helpful to say to the athletes, on the 25, please, put it on the 25. We're at the 25, something along those lines when you're doing this pendulum broken windmill signal. And that's the sum of the rule changes. And now let's go into the editorial changes, some of which repeat the rule changes. But let's talk through these. The first point here is that the NFHS used to call umpires and officials umpires and officials throughout the book on different pages. Sometimes you would read umpire, sometimes you would read official. The NFHS has decided to normalize that so that in all cases it says officials. So you are an umpire, and in this book that is represented by the words you are an official. The home team shall wear solid knee socks and the visiting team shall wear solid knee socks or a sock guard, that type of thing. The key word here is solid. So it is no longer allowed to have numbers or names on socks. It is certainly allowed to have a little logo from the manufacturer because that's how some socks come. Interestingly, by the way, in Europe, you're not allowed to wear white socks because it matches the lines of the field. In Europe, the teams just wear different colored socks so that they, and they can be multicolored. And I just think it's interesting that, we're so concerned that we have one team dressed in white socks, and it's helpful for the umpire. But if the white ball and the white sock and the white sideline or goal line are all in the same place at the same time, then that can be potentially more problematic than being able to identify one team versus another. 154 and 155. The changes here have been made to move excess verbiage from 154 into 155. 156 is just details about what to do, about the uniform and what is allowed and not allowed. Now, there are pages of details in the NFHS book about this, and that's basically equal to the sort of tournament guidelines that are produced by the FIH and other governing bodies like the NCAA regarding how the team should dress. 17E. This is a blast from the past. Goalkeepers shall release the ball immediately if caught. So in the old days, we used to have fingered gloves, and the ball could literally be caught by the left hand, for example. Nowadays, the goalkeepers wear what's called a blocker on their left hand, and their right hand is wrapped in protection in such a way that the stick is enveloped in that protection. So I guess it would be possible for the goalkeeper to pinch the ball between the blocker and the hand, or perhaps hold the ball up against their chest if the ball was shot high and they sort of caught it for a moment. And the goalkeepers are being reminded that they can't continue to hold it in that manner. They have to release it right away. 1-8 penalty is about what to do when the goalkeeper is seen to be wearing or using illegal equipment. And there's a lot of details here, but as umpires, we want to be cautious about the types of penalties we apply for this. So, and how to protect the goalkeeper. So, for example, if the goalkeeper's helmet comes off while they're doing a sliding tackle, We don't card the goalkeeper because their helmet came off. And in fact, if the attack is continuing, we want to stop the game immediately because the goalkeeper is endangered. And we would restart play with a bully. But what if the goalkeeper is seen to be not wearing a neck protector and the game is already on and maybe the play is at the 50? This penalty instruction gives you the details as to how to handle that situation. Now on this slide 191, the head coaches are responsible for attending the pregame meeting. That change is something that is all sort of well worn, but never listed. So we all know that the coach has to go to the captain's meeting, the head coach has to go to the captain's meeting and verify that their players are wearing legal equipment and clothing, but it wasn't listed here, and so now it's been added that they have to actually go to the meeting as one of their responsibilities. 165, situation D, this is a situation describing what should be done if a player puts on a face mask, which is that they're not allowed to. But I do want to highlight that in New Jersey anyway, and perhaps in your state, the State Athletic Association has allowed face masks via a very strict certification process that may or may not be unique to New Jersey. So in New Jersey, if the player is wearing a mask, they have to have a letter that's certified by the state, and they can present that to the umpires. But I would also say that, you know, the umpire is supposed to listen to the coach at the beginning of the game, and if the coach says that their players are legally equipped, then that is the way in which the game should be conducted, that the players are wearing legal equipment. Certainly, we would hope that the coach would mention this so there isn't any confusion during the game, you know, if there was such a special case. So here, I just want to point out that the, you know, more details about the goalkeeper and what they're wearing and how to handle that, but this is actually called 1.8 penalty, and it's at the bottom of page 23 in the rule book. But again, this describes the correct procedure for handling something wrong about the goalkeeper's equipment. So the deleted words here are another blast from the past, an old rule from many, many years ago. When the ball went over the end line after deflecting off a defender's stick who was further away from the end line than the 25, play would restart with a 16. Now that was at least a decade ago where that changed, and now no matter where you are on the field, if the ball is last touched by a defender and it, you know, accidentally is played or deflected across the end line, then play restarts with a free hit from the 25 for the attack. In this area is just legacy text or litter, basically, from the old rule that said that if the ball glances off the stick or person of a defender in this area, so that in this area is gone now. I just want to also highlight that taking a free hit from the 25 is different than taking a free hit, a 16. 16 is slang. It means that when that ball is last touched by the defender and the ball goes over the end line and it was accidental, it means that the ball can be placed anywhere from the end line. It can be on the end line all the way up to the 16 for the play to be restarted. Some umpires have actually said you have to put the ball on the 16, and that is incorrect. That's coaching decision, player decision as to where exactly they start, but they are limited to going up to the 16. The 25, however, that ball has to be on the 25, you know, with a little bit of leeway, an inch or two here or there, but all the free hit parameters apply to a free hit taken from the 25. 424, an official's timeout replaces a timeout. So this is just making it clear that when there's an injury timeout, it is the official's timeout and it's not charged to the team. 7-3-4 penalty. This we discussed already. It said a penalty corner shall be awarded when there's an intentional foul by the defense inside the 25 but outside the circle. 8-2-1 penalty 1, A, B, and C. As I say here in the slide, this has been massively simplified. There is a page and a half almost of text that this is replacing in the new rule book. Now, 9-2, penalties 3, is seemingly very innocent and maybe a reference to that thing I was mentioning before about penalty corners not coming from an upgraded free hit. But let's look at this carefully. If any opposing player is within 5 yards of the ball at the time of the free hit, that free hit may be retaken or dealt with as misconduct. What is being discussed here is that if a defender places himself directly in front of the free hit, like inches away, or knocks the ball away, in either case an attempt to delay the attack from continuing, then that can be retaken or dealt with as misconduct. But what the NFHS is saying that it cannot be upgraded. So if you have a free hit from the broken line circle for the red team, and the blue team stands right there, making it very hard for the red team to progress, or the blue team knocks the ball away, many of us will manage that situation by turning that free hit or upgrading it into a penalty corner. The NFHS is saying that no, the free hit was for whatever foul it was that you said wasn't a penalty corner, and subsequent fouls that happen during the dead ball time, meaning before the free hit is taken, aren't a reason to give a penalty corner. 10-2-7, situation A. All that's happened here is a grammatical change. We learned in 7th grade English that you shouldn't use a word in defining the word, and that's basically what happened here, because it used to say hitting the ball, involving a long sweeping movement with the stick before making contact, is regarded as a hit. So they've replaced the word hitting with striking, and it's a much better sentence construction for that reason. Now at the top here, 12-1-2 penalties 1, 2, 3, and 5. The change is pretty important. What it used to say was that the green card shall be issued to the person who is involved in the misconduct and the head coach. But that meant the umpire had to have eyes in the back of their head so that they could see who was perhaps yelling out, "Call it both ways," and then give them a card and the head coach. Well, now what the NFHS is saying is that, clearly the head coach is in charge of the team area, and the head coach is to be carded for any misconduct in the team area. And if the umpire also identifies the actual offender, which of course could be the head coach, then they should card that person as well. But for the most part, your focus as an umpire should be, of course, the game, not for the most part, but the entire part. And if somebody says something inappropriate or comes forward of the line, gets into your way while you're running downfield, for example, you don't have to know who they were. You just have to card the head coach. Now at the bottom of the slide, it talks about the official's guide, and it talks about what it used to say was that you were supposed to stay ahead of the play. And that has been replaced with keep the ball to the left. And that is a correct change. Staying ahead of the play, if there were a 16, for you to stay ahead of that play, that means you would have to go to the 20 or 25 yard line, right? You'd have to be wide so you weren't in the middle of the play. So let's say the red team hits the ball, it's intercepted and they hit it across the field, right? But it hits a bumper, for some reason slows down, a blue player races in, intercepts that pass, and is on the goalkeeper in a flash. And you're out at the 20, 25-yard line at the sideline. So you are way out of position. So don't stay ahead of the play. Instead, keep the ball to your left. So if there's a 16, stay between the ball and the end line. Do not go in front of the ball. And more important, stay closer to the goal cage because, of course, the most important line on the field is the goal line. And if there's an interception and a breakaway, that's where you want to be. And we have to, as a field hockey community, sort of give up incidental calls near the sideline if we were making sure we are in a proper position to make the very important goal line call. In the official's guide, this area about raised hits has been greatly improved in terms of the language that was used to describe it. This language matches very closely the language, or word for word perhaps, in the rules of hockey. Players must not intentionally raise the ball with a hit except for shot on goal. Too many umpires think that they're supposed to judge raised hits on whether or not it's dangerous. No. It is judged explicitly on whether or not it was raised intentionally. If a kid hits the ball, you see them slip, the ball pops up off their stick in a weird way and it was total surprise. Okay, it was unintentionally hit into the air. That is the only time that you have the opportunity to judge it on whether or not it was dangerous. The official's guide has also been changed by adding E and F to examples of delay. One is delaying of a hit. You have to make up your mind what is a delayed hit. More than 5 seconds of hemming and hawing about what to do. Remember, we've got the self pass now. They don't have to pass. So especially when the game is nearing the end and the team is ahead that has the free hit, and they just can't make a decision. Oh my goodness, well, it's probably delay. And therefore, it's time for you to reverse possession, give the ball to the other team, and possibly card the team that is delaying on that. And then the next one is, came before that, but a little more conversation about the extended huddling on a penalty corner. What is extended? It's hard to say. But at the international level, the teams are given 40 seconds, 40 seconds. And at 40 seconds, the umpire actually blows a whistle to start the penalty corner. So, you could use that as a guideline as to what is extended huddling, but you have to make the decision. Now, what I would ask you to do is not to use rushing language, not the language of Russians, but rushing language, such as hurry up, or come on, let's go. Instead, state the facts. Your huddle must come to an end. I'll give you 5 seconds to break it up. That's, of course, when you reach a point of concern that this is an extended huddle. Now, you might also know that when one penalty corner ends in another penalty corner, that it is essentially the same penalty corner. It's what I call a chained penalty corner. One penalty corner is chained to the other one. It is generally accepted that it is poor form to huddle yet again for any chained penalty corner. So you certainly might end that and tell the players, you've had your huddle for this penalty corner, let's go. And if we all behave that way, then players all over the nation will expect that type of behavior. And they'll conduct themselves appropriately. Highlighted up at the top here, again, another change in the official's guide. B never existed before. So there was before the hit, watch for, and after the hit, watch for, but B was never there, and that is at the hit. What do you watch for as the shot is being taken? C is included in all the text there simply because when the NFHS inserted B, they had to rename C, and because they relabel it, and because they did that, they feel compelled, of course, to include it in the editorial changes. An important little change here, have the stroker place the ball on a penalty stroke line. It used to say the official should place the ball on the stroke line for the attacker. There is no reason once the game begins that an umpire should ever touch the field hockey ball again. The ball is used by the players. Umpires, they've got a watch, they've got recording materials, they've got penalty cards, they've got a whistle. They don't need a hockey ball. One of the worst things I see at some games is at halftime, instead of the umpires coming together, one goes off in a different direction and runs over and picks up the hockey ball. It's not their job. What they've done is separated themselves from their partner, the person that they should be standing next to. So halftime, don't go get the ball, go get your partner. Now, the next bit is on a suggested tiebreaker. The shootout, or what is referred to here as a one-on-one, which could be mistaken for a penalty stroke, right? That's a one-on-one, goalkeeper against attacker. But the one-on-one refers to a shootout, and it's a tiebreaker suggestion. The NFHS has had the one-on-one in the rule book for, I believe, multiple decades. And here there's a little convolution in terms of what it says in the book, what it says on this page, and what is commonplace throughout the world. The one-on-one says here that it could have no follow-up shots permitted. But in the book, it says it could be conducted without allowing follow-up shots. And then at the end, there's just some improved and simplified language about this. Shootouts are not part of the rules. Tiebreakers are not part of the rules. But it seems rather dated to suggest that one cannot take follow-up shots on shootouts. So if I were in charge, I would say follow the worldwide standard in that an attacker can take as few or as many shots as they like in 8 seconds. Why complicate the accepted practice? And now we see, finally, new illustrations for the field hockey signals. We've lost the woman who was wearing stripes, and now we're presented with new graphics here, silhouetted indications of what the signals are. And happily, I must say, the umpire does not appear to be wearing striped shirts. Zebras are striped, right? And giant predators called lions try to catch them. And those stripes are hard to discern. And in a field hockey game, it's hard to see your partner if they're wearing stripes because of all the different colors that the fans might be wearing. In football, stripes are great because, you're maybe 10, 20 yards away from the official that you are partnering with, and, they're judges, line judges, referees, etc. In field hockey, you might be 40, 50 yards away from your partner most of the time. So it's helpful to have a solid shirt in a color that really stands out and helps you find your partner when you need them. Points of emphasis. Properly marked protective eyewear. I will say that in 2019, they have to be properly marked, but actually what is given here as the point of emphasis is that all equipment should be worn appropriately and in line with how the manufacturer intended it to be worn. Because face masks are not allowed, then this doesn't really apply to face masks, like attaching the goggles to face masks or wearing the goggles over the face mask, I'm sorry. But goggles are not allowed to be attached. I mean, that's not how they were designed to be worn. So there are some soft helmets that some kids are wearing because they've got like sutures in their head and they want to protect themselves from getting another skin injury to their scalp. You cannot attach the goggles to those soft helmets because they were not designed to be worn attached to helmets. Okay, good sporting behavior. Officials and coaches need to work together to provide a positive learning environment for student athletes to learn both the sport of field hockey and good sporting behavior. The positive values that are learned will serve the players long after their field hockey experience, which could be 3 years of their life, has concluded. Players, coaches, and officials should pay special attention to the following points of emphasis. Players. Throughout the game, players should demonstrate good sportsmanship. This is inclusive of huddling before a penalty corner in a timely fashion and conducting themselves after a goal is scored in a positive and respectful manner. You know, it is against the rule for a player to enter their opponent's goal. And so many times I see players go in and get the hockey ball like it's some sort of trophy and carry it upfield. This is actually against the rules. And yet, umpires have allowed this to happen and not penalize it as the misconduct that it is. Worse, there are umpires who tell the players in the captain's meeting that the player's responsibility is to go get the ball and carry it upfield. It is not the player's job to indicate who scored. It is the other team's ball after the red team scores. It is the white team's ball, and the white team should be left alone to bring the ball upfield. I mean, we might as well ask the goal scorer to do a cartwheel or sing the national anthem or something. It's just inappropriate. And, like I said, it's against the rules. All equipment should be worn appropriately and in line with how the manufacturer intended it to be worn, and goggles must be worn to cover the entire eye as intended. Coaches need to participate in a pregame meeting with the captains of both teams and officials and ensure that their players are properly attired and legally equipped. I've seen games in many different states, and in some states, the coaches only attend the captain meeting in order to verify that their players are properly attired and legally equipped. In other words, the umpires are following what I call the VNIC. They do verification first, and then the coaches leave. The NIC, with the umpires standing next to each other, the N is for get the player's name. The I is for report on their inspection of the field. So what are the line colors? Or are there any safety hazards that can't be dealt with? Well, safety hazards, you deal with that by not playing the game. But, maybe there's a giant hole in the net that can't be fixed for some reason. So you let the captains know about that. And the last part of NIC, N-I-C, is the coin toss. Officials should be approaching the game with a positive attitude and use the cards as a means to manage the play and the safety of the players. Now, the umpires cannot protect players from danger, but they must therefore penalize dangerous play. Officials should strictly adhere to the NFHS rules of the game and not use personal interpretations of the rules. For example, I think the 25-yard free hit signal is crazy, that pendulum broken windmill signal. I think umpires should hold their fist high above their head. Remember the old add 10 signal for those of you who are familiar with it? I think that's a better signal, but I don't get to use it because that is not following the rules of the game. That's an personal interpretation of what I think it should be. And the same can apply to obstruction and the way a player swings the stick and that sort of thing. Rough and dangerous play, number 3. Overly aggressive play and lack of regard for everyone's safety is unacceptable in the sport of field hockey. I would argue in any sport. In both practice and gameplay, coaches need to teach the safe use of the stick and good body control. That's code for and not running into their opponent. Rough and dangerous play, such as deliberately or blindly hitting the ball into players who have been properly instructed and are in good position to play defense, should be addressed by coaches and officials. Players need to accept the possibility that they could inflict serious injury. Officials must be able to recognize dangerous play and penalize it appropriately. Although it is recognized that the possibility of injury is inherent in field hockey, all participants have the obligation to minimize risk whenever possible. Players are responsible for playing safely. Number 4, flagrant fouls. It should be re-emphasized that a penalty stroke is not awarded when a red card is issued to a player for a flagrant foul during a non-scoring opportunity, but the player will be suspended for the game and the team plays short. So there's not a penalty stroke, but it doesn't sort of lessen the penalty to the player. However, when a red card is awarded to a coach, a penalty stroke will be given in addition to the suspension of the coach and the team playing short for the rest of the game. 5, substitutions. Coaches are reminded that in the spirit of the game, when a timeout is taken before a penalty corner, substitutions are not permitted. Number 6, self-pass and delay of game. The self-pass has been incorporated to improve the flow of the game, and it has had a radical improvement on the flow of the game. I personally think it's the best thing ever invented. Delaying the game by a player should be avoided, and coaches and officials should reinforce the following. Coaches should provide specific instructions regarding the 5-yard rule and how to properly shadow and defend appropriately without inhibiting the flow of the game. Officials should establish and clearly communicate the 5-yard standard early in the game to support proper play and the conduct of the players. This often happens in the first moments of the game when an umpire has the opportunity to indicate to the players through their voice or whistling, warnings, and cards what to them is 5 yards. Now, it sounds like an objective measure, but we're all out on the field. Sometimes it's hard to judge. If the umpire says 4 yards equals 5 yards, then 4 yards equals 5 yards. They're doing the best they can in estimating the distance, but they have to set that standard, apply it consistently, and then all the players will cooperate with you. A defender influencing or interfering with the self-pass before adhering to the 5-yard rule is a delay of game and should be penalized with the appropriate penalty to manage the game. Now, we talked about this earlier, that means that they have to be carded. Well, maybe warned once if it's a little bit of a delay. That's, again, having the skill to manage the game properly. The umpires who are highly skilled know when a word will work and when they have to use a card. The NFHS Learning Center is a tremendous resource. One of the best things the NFHS has ever done is the Concussion in Sports course. Umpires should do this every year if you're not required to do so. In some parts of the country, you are required to do it. If you're not required to do it, you should. I'm a retired certified athletic trainer. I probably should say a former certified athletic trainer. This is a wonderful course. It's free. It's free to umpires, coaches, players, parents, everybody. Go to NFHSlearn.com to take the Concussion in Sports course. Another one is sudden cardiac arrest. This is another great course offered for free at NFHSlearn.com. A word about sudden cardiac arrest. Young athletes who are playing field hockey might get hit in the sternum by a hockey ball, especially goalkeepers who put themselves in the line of fire. If you have anything to do with the purchasing of the equipment, even just an influencer, and have a conversation with perhaps the coach or the athletic director, make sure to tell them that in addition to getting a chest protector that is designed for field hockey, they aim to get a chest protector that has enhanced or thicker sternum protection, because when a young athlete is hit with blunt force trauma to the sternum, they can go into sudden cardiac arrest. All right, that concludes our presentation. Just a reminder that at umpirehockey.com/gear, there is equipment and reading material that you can purchase, and umpirehockey.com/enroll allows you to take the rules and umpiring class. The reason I emphasize rules is because this is an excellent course for captains and coaches, especially those new to the game. And again, it's at umpirehockey.com/enroll. I hope you have an absolutely brilliant season this year. If you have any questions, please write me. Learn@umpirehockey.com. That's learn@umpirehockey.com.